Hello, everybody, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV Podcast 591. I'm your host, John Van Derzen, the one, the only one who's ever been here. We've never had a co-host in my life, never had a bearded redhead sit next to me. That'd be really awkward. Terry, still not around, still over in Southeast Asia. We'll talk a little bit about Southeast Asia coming up. Their event actually started today. I know, it's Tuesday. It feels really strange. But they're doing like a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think it's the Siam Open. Terry will be there. He'll start putting out videos for the second and third round. His last set of videos, the one which we talked about last week, I think the final round comes out tomorrow. Everything's so strange with time zones and watching social media. I never exactly know what's going on. But either way, we miss Terry. He will. I'd love to get him to chime in. Hopefully, in the next either next week or the week after. I don't have a guest tonight. I reached out to one or two people, sponsorships, but a lot of people are busy and kind of. I got the cold shoulder. No, just kidding. I got the excuse, so to speak, that people are going over to Disc East today. Today's the day. A lot of people are getting ready or going over there. It's exciting. Disc East is really cool, and I'm so jealous that I have not been able to get over there. I'm hoping to get over there next year, is really honestly, knock on wood. Confirmed appearances by Holland Hanley, Missy Gannon, Simon, Kelvin, Paul, Gannon, Barella, Robinson, Isaac, Wysocki, Hammis, Climo, Alden Harris, Casey White, Paul Kranz, Austin Turner, Maria Oliva, Raven Klein, the Foundation guys, Will Shoestrick, Roderick. Sorry. Jeff Spring from the DGPT, Trash Panda, Jesse, Jay Millie, Bonanza, Steve Dodge, Avery Jenkins. Just the list keeps going on and on and on. And that's this weekend, the Disc East Expo, the premier disc golf expo. And to be frank, they're pretty much right. It is the premier. You get so much crap. Your exclusives, and I don't say crap. That's just kind of a throwing it out. Marshall Street Disc Golf is giving you some Glow G capybaras and a Screech, some Thought Space disc, a custom stamped MVP disc with the Disc Golf Expo stamp and Marshall Street stuff. There's some Brixton trading cards. Climo Disc Golf has 2 new prototypes and a pre-release. If you're a collector and you want exclusive drops, you have to be there this weekend. And that's not me. I don't give two craps for the most part about these exclusive drops. If I were to get them, I'd probably flip them for cash because that's the type of guy I am. But if you do care about those things and you want to be a greedy collector like Terry Miller, that guy has everything, then by all means, you should be at this Disc Golf Expo. So please, Innova has a bunch of custom stamps. Discraft is their new test flight stamp, a new mold with a test flight stamp. I've heard this is kind of like a Captain's Thrasher, maybe just a stability a little slightly different on that one. I forget exactly what it was called, but MVP is having an exclusive disc. My guess is the way MVP works is when they put out exclusive discs, it's like a weird run of something. Like, hey, we've never done this with a blue overmold with the green stamp on a watermelon or strawberry, whatever. They MVP tends to do kind of crazy things like that. But Disc East Expo, please, by all means, get out there and get your discs. It's a crazy good, phenomenal time. So, at least that's what everyone's told me. That's what Dynamite told me. And so I would love to get out there, maybe do a live podcast next year from there with some guests, kind of do like a Saturday thing. But either way, I'm living a little FOMO right now for what's going on over there because I'm not involved at all. But it's a quiet week. There's not a lot happening, just some sponsorship stuff. There's really, other than sponsorship, there's not a lot of news going on. Next week, I already have a guest lined up. It's great. More than likely, you're going to see one Scott Stokely join the podcast to talk about what he's been doing or what his plan is and how his disc line is going. All these other things that he's got going on. Scott never one to be shy with an opinion or be afraid to talk about what he's got going on. That's kind of what it's going to be. So more than likely, we're going to see Scott Stokely next week as a podcast guest. So tonight might be a little shorter of an episode, but we're going to go through all the news that's worth newsing. But first, we're going to start out with some PDGA results. And the Tour Down Under, the 2026 Discraft Australian Open, presented by OTB. This happened at Tapu, New Zealand. The tournament director was Steve Lawson. This might be right away. We're 3 weeks into 2026, and this may be the biggest upset we're going to see of the season. It's a smaller field. It's only 35 men, MPO. But the winner, and I'm not just homeboying for him, Eli Swanson, PDG number 128050, 992 rated, shoots 12 under par to win $1212 US dollars, $1,212. But I say this might be the biggest upset of the year. This is an A tier. He came into the weekend, and I've been doing a lot of analytics lately for Skip Ace, which maybe I'll get into in a little while, maybe towards the end of the show. Going into this weekend, I figured he had about a 0.5% chance of winning. You have people like Paul Oman, 1025, Levi Stout, 1025, Corey Ellis, 1032, Bradley Williams, 1033, Aiden Scott, 1023, Blake Houston, 1014, Luke Humphreys, 1011, David Perry, 1006, Jeremy Coling, 1021, Jacob Blair, 1011. So you just had a ton of guys in front of him that were anywhere from 15 to 20 to 30 ratings points better. And if you think about it, 30 ratings points, that should be about 3 strokes around. So the fact that Eli, who played, had a piss poor first round, shot only a 1023, shot a 60. He was in 7th place at that point. 7th place behind Lotta, Scott, Stout, Williams, Oman, and Ellis. Ellis, who came out with the rip-roaring 53, a 1073 rated round. But Eli, did I mention he's a Wisconsin guy? You know, he hasn't been around here very much because he's been trying to tour a lot more, but he's from Pittsville, Wisconsin. So he comes out with a 56, which is a 1049, followed up by a 55, a 1061 rated round. Now, Eli's a guy that's, like I said, he's trying to go out on tour. He's trying to make a tour of it. Last year did not go so well for him on the tour, but you know, those are early kind of, would say, early touring days, because he finished up, I looked at this earlier, he finished up the season going 88th at Green Mountain, 83rd at Great Lakes. He didn't even qualify for the MVP. 86th at Idlewild, 121st at Zucca. So this is a guy who's taking his lumps week after week after week. And now, maybe after, a good year and a half out on tour, he's starting to kind of show some life. There is some life in them there hills by beating all these top guys. So second place, as I said, was Paul Oman, then Levi Stout and Corey Ellis, Bradley Williams, and Aiden Scott. But keep an eye out for Eli. If he can keep this type of play up, I mean, there's no reason that you're not going to be hearing his name up in those top 2 or 3 cards every once in a while. I'm not predicting it like a phenomenal, holy crap, we're seeing the coming of a new player kind of season. But we'll definitely see him cash, And I think we'll probably see him in one of those top 2 or 3 cards where we get some video coverage on Eli this year. His 992 rating right now, I think we're going to see that kind of take a couple jumps. I wouldn't be shocked if he's more along the lines of 1,005 to 1,010 by the time the season starts. So, congratulations to Eli. Over on the FPO side, pretty good field. Cat Merch wins this one, $748. Last week, Cat did not have the greatest of weekends, but she comes back this weekend and shoots a 16 under, a 1015, a 948, and a 1,008. So 2 out of 3 rounds were very, very good. That second round, she had a little room to play with, but so ends up beating Sarah Holcomb by 4 strokes. Sarah shot a 12 under. Paige Pierce at 8 under. Sophia at 1 under, tied with Chandler Ray. So that is your top 5 in the FPO field. Congratulations. Just the tour down under, really cool. I'm excited to see another mini tour that our players that when they want to can go to, and such a place like New Zealand / Australia is really exciting that we get some of this off-season action. So go look for that out. I believe it's on Go Throw's channel. They're those boys over there are doing some good stuff. I have to say. Just reading on the board right now. Terry's worth is 8 in rare metals and weight. He's worth his weight in rare metals. Yes, Terry is. Again, if you follow Terry on Instagram, you'll know that he is at the Siam Open, and he's recording not the first round, but the second and third rounds. So, in fact, speaking of the Siam Open, the PDGA Asia Tour event number 2, this one doesn't have the, we'll say the star power that the first Asia event had when you had Kelvin and Jackie Chen and a couple other big name fellas. But what we have right now, and this is only after 1 round, Clay Edwards shooting a 13 under par. That is a 1030 rated round, 14 points above his rating. And Tomi Leitonen in second with Jakub Samarad in third. Tied. Ooh, I shouldn't have said tied because that's a hard name. Yapi Stokowski. Yapi Stokowski. That's as good as you're getting. Sorry, Yapi. Can't do any better than that. It's just my dumb American voice. Over on the FPO side right now, Chai-Fang Chen, who won last week, I believe, is in the lead right now. She shot a 10 under par over Margaret Patterson, who's at 8 under par. So that is the Siam Open. Like I said, Terry's going to get some of that video footage out very shortly. Let's keep it in PDGA realm for a little while before we start talking some sponsorship stuff. Major announcement is what the PDGA site says, and what they're doing is they're announcing majors. The 2027 European Open, the USWDGC, and the 2028 major locations are announced. So, 2028 PDGA World Championships. Drum roll, please. Going back to Lynchburg, 2028. Nate Heinold will be the TD of this event. I have mixed feelings about this. I think these courses are a lot of fun. I think that they provide a very good challenge. But we need some variety. And I know it's difficult. We're just in Lynchburg. And I know this is 2 years away. And maybe it won't feel that way. But we were just in Lynchburg. We got it. We have to be able to start spreading out. We have to get down south. I just think it makes a lot of sense. 2029, as we know, is going to be over in Estonia. forget, 2027. I forget where that one is. One of them's over in Portland. Is that this year? Is that next year? I don't even know. But it's being run by the same 4 groups. And I don't have a problem with that personally. You're seeing your Jeff Spring, your Nate Heinold. Obviously, we just saw UC run one. We're going to see some European contingent in the next couple of years. I don't care if the same 5 or 6 people run them. But man, do we got to pick some new places. I don't have a lot of excitement for this. Like there's not the anticipation. Is it going to be a great show? Of course. Of course. It's going to be phenomenal. The play will probably be awesome. I won't even think about it by then, but just there is no anticipation for this. Like nobody saw this and got really excited unless you're maybe within about 50 to 100 miles of Bedford County, Virginia. And I understand it's difficult to put on a PDGA Worlds. I think this was the only bid. Yeah, bids received. Uno. So nobody else wanted it. Because, for a few reasons. One, it's difficult to run a Worlds. You need to have 2 World Championship caliber courses within, I would say, probably 25 to 30 miles at most between the 2 of them. You need to be able to have 2 to 3 years of prep to make sure that these go off without a hitch. You need to be able to raise a ton of money. You need to be able to have a volunteer squad that is going to be with you for these 2 to 3 years because it's such a long prep time and it's so difficult. So you need to have a strong community around that, or a strong crew like Nate Heinold and Jeff Spring and those guys do. It's just, there's just no excitement. I'm sorry. There's just none. I have no excitement. Yeah, 2024 was in Lynchburg. Obviously, we got Nokia. So it's 4 years after we were just there. It's funny because 2024 location says Virginia, Lynchburg, Virginia. This one says City of Lynchburg and Bedford County, Virginia. But, that's right. This year, Milford, Michigan. Next year's Portland, Oregon. That's right. This year's in Michigan. At the Toboggan. And the new course. The new course I'm excited for. Toboggan, we see it every year. Portland, we see that course every year. See what I'm saying? Just year after year after year. And I get that the PDGA wants these to be established courses. You don't want to put this on something that's brand new. We've done that in the past. I mean, I'd say for the most part, it's worked out. The PDGA is really good at kind of prepping these type of things. But let's get someplace that's not on tour. Even a big A tier would be fine with me. Just something that we don't see on coverage every single week. Okay, every single year. Little exaggeration. Other majors announced: the PDGA Amateur World Championships in Emporia, Kansas. We're going back to Emporia. I think this is great. Honestly, everyone knows me. I've been an Emporia defender for a very long time. Not only has DD treated us very well, but I love the challenge that Emporia presents for a specific type of golf. And having as many courses that they have there will work out great for Am Worlds. Just like it works out great for Junior Worlds. But Amateur Worlds is going to be at Emporia. That should be a lot of fun. There were 4 bids for Am Worlds. And you might be asking yourself, well, why were there so many more bids for Am Worlds? Cha-cha-cha-cha-ching. It is way easier to make money at an Am Worlds. People want to run Am Worlds. Not only is there less of an expectation, just think that the next few Portland, Oregon World Championships, think of what they have to live up to. You had Nokia, which was phenomenal. Then you were following up with Milford, Michigan, which Iglo basically. And Nate Heinold has already announced like $300,000 for on-course assets and just infrastructure. So at some point, we're going to kind of come down off this high. I want to say this can't last. It might, but somebody's going to be disappointed at some point. As opposed to in Am Worlds where there isn't that expectation. We don't have to worry about spectators. We don't have to worry about just selling all these tickets. Because guess what? Ain't nobody going to Am Worlds to watch. The only people who are going to Am Worlds to watch probably maybe are some of these kids' parents. And they're probably walking around with their kid as either a caddy or not. So we don't have to worry about that. There's such a lower threshold, a lower expectation for Am Worlds than there is for Pro Worlds because we don't see it. We don't see every little bit. And to be fair, to be honest, dead honest, the AMs tend to complain less. The pros have a very high expectation, and if it's not met, you hear about it. And the pros have a very loud soapbox. All their social medias, if one of our top pros comes out and says something disparaging about a T-pad, a course, a basket, a tree, literally anything, there's 20 podcasts that are going to amplify that. Better or worse, it's true. If someone at Am Worlds complains that, their caddy fell into quicksand and vanished, nobody's going to say anything. So it's a double-edged sword, but ultimately amateur worlds are they run and people like to go, and it's easier to make money. Yeah. Junior Worlds, PDJ Junior Worlds, Rochester, New York. This is exciting. This is exciting, Rochester. This is one of those courses I would love to see at Pro Worlds because we don't get to see it. I don't know if it's quality, Pro Worlds quality, or if it's Junior Worlds quality, but this one also received 4 bids. So this is 2028. We got this year, which is in Pittsburgh, next year, which is in Peoria, and then 2028 is Rochester. So very cool. Pittsburgh should be really cool too this year. Hopefully we get I got to play in Allenton, Pennsylvania for an Am World. Or was that Pro Worlds? That was Pro Worlds. Jeez. Many years ago. And the Pittsburgh area in general or the Pennsylvania area in general is gorgeous as far as courses. Love the I want to say the thickness of the courses because it feels like you're in the woods all the time. Or maybe it just felt like that to me because I was in the woods all the time, probably throwing out of trees. The PDGA Masters Disc Golf World Championship 2028, Lynchburg and Bedford County. You heard that right. 2028 is Lynchburg and Bedford County. So you are going to see 2 majors at that establishment. They have Pro Worlds and Masters Worlds. Isn't that kind of crazy? It almost harkens back to the day of when these were combined. They're not going to be, but I honestly don't mind this at all. I don't mind the Masters at Lynchburg. I think that's really good for them. In 2028, we might be seeing this live. I mean, we've already started to dive into live Masters Worlds like we did this year. We all got to see the really cool battle between Paul Oman and Dutch Napier. It was electric. So I can only assume that we're going to continue that trend of at least getting final round access to this big Masters event. And by then, who knows? Maybe we'll see a little Am Worlds too sprinkled in there. I don't know for sure, but I think it could be really cool. So Lynchburg for Masters Worlds. This year it's in Peoria, next year Tulsa, and then Lynchburg. PDGA European Open. Not the Europa Cup, the European Open. We went over this a couple weeks ago. They announced the Europa Cup, and then a week later promptly rolled that back and said, nope, we're going with European Open. So 2027, Ale Disc Golf Center in Sweden. Sweden is starting to become a very large disc golf mecca in general. The number of rounds played there is crazy if you look at some of the stats. Just the last 5 years, how it has accelerated. We tend to think a lot of Norway and Finland. We don't talk a lot about Sweden, but the Ale Disc Golf Center should be really cool for the European Open in 2027. Obviously, this year, what do we have? European Open is it the European Disc Golf Festival? It's too many European stuff, but I believe is it in Estonia this year? I think so. And the PDGA United States Women's Disc Golf Championships 2027 is going to Columbia, Missouri. So we are going to see I think, what courses do we have over in Columbia? Is this I don't believe, I don't know. But I do also know 2028 is coming back to Wisconsin. It's going to be at Manitowoc again. Yep, you heard that right. The U.S. Women's is coming back to the same city it was hosted in 2025. 3 years. On one hand, I love that it's in Wisconsin because that means I get to go hang out and chat. But I would be remiss to say if, just like I did for Worlds, I'd love a new venue. And there were 5 bids received for this Worlds, or this U.S. Women's, sorry, not Worlds, U.S. Women's over in Manitowoc. I know the people over in Manitowoc very well. And they're going to put on a phenomenal show. And in fact, it's a little less, there's a little excitement to be had in Manitowoc because we are going to get a new course, a Kale LaVisca designed course that is just like 20 minutes west of the current Roland Ridge course. So my guess is that we're going to see Roland Ridge and this new course that will be that'll be designed by Kale at the Ariens Nordic Center. So that's pretty exciting. Not only because I get a new course in my state designed by Kale. This is his 3rd, 4th designed course in Wisconsin. You can't do it in Minnesota or something, buddy? What's going on? But Ariens Nordic Center should be pretty cool. The Tim Selinsky U.S. Masters over 2028, Northwest Arkansas. This year it's in Lake County, Florida. Awesome. Then Burlington, North Carolina. Awesome. And then Northwest Arkansas. 0 bids received. That's the big news here. 0 bids. Nobody wanted to run the Tim Selinsky United States Masters Disc Golf Championship in 2028. I don't know why. I truly don't. So instead, the PDGA is going to run it. Should be pretty cool. And that's kind of it for your PDGA majors. Some news, some exciting news, some less exciting news, but ultimately, there you go. I wish that our Pro Worlds had the variety of some of our other ones, but I understand why it, so to speak, doesn't. It's just hard to get kind of excited for all of that. Over on our board, Doc Sen says, I love angry JVD. I'm not angry. I'm just... Is that the worst thing to say as a parent? Oh my God, I sound like, every parent. I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed in you. Like, that's the one that cuts right to the heart. Like, you'd rather have your parent be angry at you than, disappointed in you. And that's kind of how I feel about Pro Worlds. Not angry, just disappointed. So, and again, they're going to put on a great show. It's just, just blah. Like, I hope we hear that we're going to get like a new course in Bedford County. And that we're not just going to see Ivy and whatever the other one is. I don't know. That's how much I care. Real question is, do you think these pros building courses are just looking at the course or the infrastructure surrounding it so that they can run big events? Oh, there's definitely the infrastructure around it. Because I'll tell you right now, we could host a Pro Worlds right now in northern Wisconsin, up at Highbridge Hills. We hosted one there before, back in the day. They have four, technically I think a fifth, but 4 courses there that can have all sorts of awesome configurations. But guess what? There's zero infrastructure. There ain't going to be a single spectator there probably. It's all camping. There's like one hotel within like 30 miles of that place. We have places like this. So they need to look at all the infrastructure. They need to look at who can raise money, who can do these things. I know people are going to sit and crap on Nate Heinold because that's the internet's favorite thing to do. But Nate runs a phenomenal show, and Nate knows how to fundraise. And a lot of it, I mean, he gets a lot of the benefit of Ledgestone behind the fundraising, so they can put out all these exclusive discs and raise, $100,000 in disc sales or whatever the number is. I just made up a number. When they release the prototype Jawbreaker Buzzsaw full color Sparkle edition, and they sell them for $25 to $35, and they sell, they make 5,000 of them, and they sell out in 5 minutes. And cool, guess what? I just made a cool 50 grand right there, or whatever that number is. So those are the type of things that Nate Heinold really has. It helps that he's got the wind at his back for that stuff. And, he has connections all throughout the industry. So I give a huge shout out to Nate Heinold every time. We don't see eye to eye on everything. I don't see eye to eye on everything with probably anybody, but he loves disc golf. I think he's good for the sport, and he's a phenomenal TD and fundraiser. What more do you want? So, yeah, Doc Zen says, I doubt many people would fly in to watch an event or drive a few hours to then have to camp out. I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, it just can't happen here in Wisconsin. Well, northern Wisconsin. We could host I'm trying to think if there's a Pro Worlds caliber course in Wisconsin. Something that the pros aren't just going to shred 14 downs on. Roland Ridge in the maxed out. We saw U.S. Women's there. If it's maxed out, I think that could be a pro caliber course. Yeah, I would have to sit and think on that, about some of our longer wooded ones. But we don't have a lot of par 4s and par 5s in our state. And I think that's pretty common with everybody. So, all right, those are your major announcements. Let's move on to a few little notes. We'll go through the sponsorships that were announced in the last week. Last week, we heard Silas Schultz on the 13th say that he was parting ways with Discmania, and I swore up and down that I thought he was going to Discraft. That same day, Discraft made some, their team site went down, and the timing looked phenomenal. Well, today I'm here to announce that I was 100% wrong. We'll get to that in a second, but January 14th, Zach Melton, he signs with Dynamic Discs again for 2026. Chris Dickerson extended his contract with Discraft. There were some rumors or murmurings that maybe Chris wasn't going to be on the team. I didn't believe that, just because I think I mentioned like his doubles events. He had announced a couple of weeks, maybe even a couple months ago, about how Discraft is sponsoring his doubles events coming through when he does touring. So I kind of assumed he was going to be re-signed. I wouldn't have expected a 3-year agreement, but good for Chris. I'm happy. Chris is a phenomenal human. So the fact that Discraft is sticking with him for another 3 years is really great. Hjelte Jensen is still with Discmania. Ryan Mon continues with Team Discraft for 2026. Chris Clemens goes back to Dynamic Disc. Chris left Dynamic Discs a few years ago, and now with some of the cycling that's going on, Chris has now ended back up at Dynamic. This is a really good reason why you don't burn bridges, people. Chris is a phenomenal lefty and just a fun, wonderful person. I say that aloud to a lot of people. But you didn't hear him talking, at least not publicly. I didn't hear anything privately. So you didn't hear him, because that stuff will get around too. Even if you say it privately, those manufacturers got ears. He's going back to Discmania. I'm sorry, Dynamic Discs. So it's really cool to see Chris. It feels like Dynamic is like, quote unquote, getting the band back together. We got Zach Melton, Chris Clemens. Disc Golf Answer Man is still doing a podcast, which, sorry about that. I think a week or two ago I said I didn't know. I think I took them off my feed and I haven't seen anything. Or maybe they're still in there. They're just not automatically downloaded in my app. But, Dynamic is, I think, trying to do things similar to maybe what we saw right around pandemic time. And I don't necessarily think they're looking to get back all of their players. You're not going to see like Paige Pierce re-sign with them. You're not going to see a few things, but getting Chris back on the team is a good move. He's a good representative. And speaking of Paige Pierce, she signed a 2-year extension with Discraft. So she's not going anywhere. She's staying in the Discraft family. And then on the 16th, Discraft announced 3 additional players to their European team. Daniel Davidson, Nestori Tukkanen, and Cynthia Kletzberga. Gonna kill me. They also announced a few names to their USA Tour team. Now, this is their tour team. This is not their elite team, but we see Addison Woodard, friend of the show. Chandler Fry. Haven't heard that name in a few years. Cynthia Ricciotti, you may remember her. She toured around with Kyle Klein for a few years, but she's coming back on the scene. She took a year or two off. She'll be back as a Discraft Tour team. Ian Fornoff, Hayden Carroll, Kelly Foster, Lexi Mark, Danny Polk, right from Minnesota. I'm friends with Danny. Great guy. Colton Montgomery, which is kind of a surprise. I thought we were going to see Colton go to Innova and be on like the same team as Kona, but went over to Discraft, so that's pretty cool. Kevin Kiefer and Evan Scott. There was a fun little Evan Scott, Evan Smith mix-up on the Discraft announcement. I think they had to pull that announcement like 3 times and put it back up because they just kept screwing things up. Either it was wrong PDGA number or wrong picture or wrong name or something. It was a little bit of chaos from the Discraft social media team, unfortunately. And I get it. You're putting out 15 similar pictures on the same style and names and PDGA numbers. You're probably in Photoshop. You've got all these different layers and all these different ones, and you're copying and pasting and you're going through. I can totally understand how something like that happens. I saw someone say that, that's just, Discraft and their AI making these dumb mistakes. And it's like, no, bro. Like, that's not what AI is good for or good at. Like, AI is really good for making like one-off type of, I'm going to put this in quotes, art. You're not creating all these templates and like very, very similar looking pictures with people in them, nonetheless, with AI. If you gave them a bunch of pictures, I guarantee you none of those players would look like who they actually are, because AI tends to like take your picture and kind of modify it slightly. It's just that's not an AI thing. So not every bad thing that happens in the world right now is AI. If something bad AI happens, I'll be the first to call it out. But this is just someone over at Discraft's team who got a little lazy with the proofreading and some Photoshop layers is my guess. Some other sponsorship news. Julia Fors, the young Swedish player, signed a 1-year contract with Latitude 64. And Oiva Salo signed a 1-year contract extension with Discmania. And then we go on to January 17th, where Discraft announced 3 more Elite Team members. They've been really kind of slow rolling this. Valerie Mondahano signed a 1-year contract extension. Ezra Aderhold, a 2-year contract extension. And Paul Macbeth is still Paul Macbeth. He's not going anywhere. Still in the middle of his 10-year, $10 million contract. January 18th, Chantel Badinsky announced she's going to be open bag. So that sounds like, I don't know if that's by choice, if she has chosen to just, I guarantee you she could have gotten on somebody's quote-unquote tour team, that second tier of team, but maybe that's not the plan that she had wanted. And I don't say I bet, but there just might not have been any interest on an elite level team, depending on what her plans are for the year. If you're going to be on the elite level team, I think your expectation is probably touring full time. And maybe that wasn't hers. She's got a whole YouTube channel. You can listen to it. It's phenomenal. I enjoy watching it, but go out and check out Miss Frisbee's YouTube channel. And Ida Emily Ness joined MVP for the 2026 season. Pretty cool. MVP making some moves. The 19th, Discraft announced Missy Gannon with a 2-year contract extension. There was a little bit of a question about what was going to happen with her. And again, she's not going anywhere. Holland Hanley's not going anywhere. Discraft is very happy with their team. So that's pretty cool. Ricky Wysocki is still in his 3-year contract. And Adam Hammis got a 1-year contract extension. Interesting to me that Chris Dickerson got a 3-year and Adam Hammis got a 1-year. I think Adam Hammis right now maybe has the higher ceiling than Chris Dickerson. But Dickerson, I think, is way more consistent. So I don't know how that works out. If this is, it has anything to do with social media or just general perception of the players. But the fact that Hammis got a 1-year extension and Dickerson got a 3, I don't know. Interesting. Calvin Longquist signs with Team MVP. Chandler Kramer, 1-year contract extension to Gateway. And finally, we're to today, where Discraft made another announcement. Hannah Wynn. We talked about Chris Clemens earlier, but Hannah Wynn, clearly the better half of that duo, is on the elite team for Discraft. Congratulations to Hannah. Exciting to see. Hannah has played, the last year or two, you've really seen the acceleration in her skills, and we've seen a lot more of her up towards the top of the leaderboard. So congratulations to Hannah Wynn. I wouldn't have been shocked had she not been on the elite team. She felt like, I don't want to say on the border, but, she didn't have any Elite Series wins. She only had a couple top 5s. She had a ton of top 10s. But the fact that she's on the elite team, I've got no qualms with it at all. I got no qualms if anyone's on the elite teams. But I'm happy that they leaned into her on the elite team. It's going to be awesome. And Silas Schultz, who I, again, predicted was going to be on Team Discraft, is actually on a 1-year contract with Team MVP. He is one of the MVP players. I think tomorrow we're going to see Aaron Gossage's name get announced on MVP. But yeah, Silas Schultz. Over to MVP. MVP is really interesting in what they're doing with their team. We've seen them, again, focus on popular players. And we've seen them focus on social media-driven players. And Silas is that. And Silas has been playing very well lately. He's not... He really shines at a lot of the A tiers, and we've seen a couple top 10s from him. We had him on the show a few months ago to talk about this, but we've seen a few top 10s recently from him. So Silas put out a whole YouTube video, as he is to do, on his move to MVP. I think he's over on Tour Life tonight. I peeked in there right before going live, and they were they were doing some of the Smashbox tech shuffle, where someone joins your show and suddenly something crazy goes wrong because, even though you practiced beforehand, some button got hit or whatever. But I know they were having issues with Silas, because I wanted to listen in to see if any news came out. But they were doing the tech shuffle, and Paul Kranz as well signing a contract extension with MVP. Paul's on there. I don't know what their second tier team is called. They're scientists. I don't know. Would that be the top tier team? Is there a hierarchy of scientist versus assistant versus, lab experiment versus little white mouse, bottom of the chain. I don't know. But Paul Kranz signed a 1-year contract extension with MVP. That is your sponsorship news that I have for tonight. Doxin says, Shark Tank idea, an AI name pronunciation for podcast hosts. It'll make trillions. I could do that. There's a lot of AI voice stuff that, in fact, I've played with it for my 9-to-5 job where I had to do like a video explainer on how to do something. And it was like 5 minutes long, and I didn't have a quiet place to record it. I didn't, we've got a couple conference rooms, but the audio quality in there is kind of weird and echoey and whatever. So I took some of my voice from this podcast and I trained, I think it was 11 labs. I trained it on my voice, and then I wrote out the script, and I just kind of chopped and cut it and edited it into the right places. Like, click here for this and type in this for this, URL. And it sounded great. Honestly, it was almost indistinguishable even to me. So, but yeah, getting something like that, I could probably put that in there and get it to say the right name. And then just sit here and move my lips for YouTube, pretending like I'm saying it. So. Doxin, does that mean that we could have an AI Terry? We could have AI Terry's voice. AI is not good enough to train an entire human yet, but yeah, sure, I could make it sit here and say how cool I am. Wow, John, that's so smart of you to say. Good thing you're on the show, John. I'm just here looking pretty. Something like that. That's what I'd get Terry to say. So. Doxen asks, do you think all MVP was smart with the COVID money and the Holy Shot money and are now grabbing up players? I don't think they're grabbing up players. I think they're being smart with their team selections. They're picking popular players. But their popular players don't seem to be crazy expensive either. I mean, I don't think Silva Sarnen was demanding a huge salary, and she's, arguably the second or third, maybe fourth best FPO player, depending on any given week. Simon was the big money grab, $1 million a year for how many ever years. But Eagle, by the time he signed on, the money. The money spigot was starting to get turned off. I'm sure Eagle's doing just fine, but that money wasn't available like it was for some of a little earlier. And all these players like Silas, I don't think he's demanding a huge amount of money. He's probably getting a good contract, but we're not talking $200,000 a year. This is not realistic. So, yeah. I think MVP is making some smart moves. Grab the popular players, Other news we have going on. Oh, I already announced that. Oh, this is kind of an interesting story. I saw this today on the social medias from Luke Humphreys. Prodigy is renaming one of their discs. Not huge news in and of itself. Their P Model S. I don't know what those mean. I'm not a Prodigy person in general. I don't know. P, I think, stands for putter. I think. S is maybe the plastic? I don't know. Whatever. Either way, the P Model S, which is the putter that Luke Humphreys has putted with for the last 6-7 years, as long as he's been on Prodigy, is being renamed. The new name of the disc, And they're actually giving this disc a name, kind of like what we saw with like Kevin Jones when he was having some exclusive discs. It's called the Good Boy. And it's got a nice little stamp of puppers with a stick in its mouth. And it's a dedication to Hogan. And Luke has a nice little video explaining how his story can't be told without Hogan, and understandable. They were, quite a duo for many, many years on tour. But I think it's kind of cool, and I think it goes a long way for Prodigy to recognize this type of thing and give Luke this disc and rename it from the P Model S to the Good Boy. And I'll say this right away, that the Good Boy is probably way easier to remember than the P Model S. It's got a better ring to it. And I'm not saying they need to go ahead and name all of their discs. That kind of goes against Prodigy's naming scheme. But I think for some of these special discs, I bet you these sell better than your average D4 500 or whatever their numbers are. Again, I'm not a Prodigy person. I don't have any Prodigy discs, unfortunately. It's just never really had a chance to attach myself to one, so I've never gone out and gotten one. But the Good Boy, being a putter, I think that's pretty cool, and I'm happy. I'm happy for Luke. I think this is a good move for Prodigy. And again, it's a real simple stamp. Just a little, brown puppers with a stick in his mouth. So go out and check that out. There's a few of them that are going to be dropping at Disc East. I know that. I think maybe a couple hundred you'll be able to get your hands on. Otherwise, they'll be out in full circulation in about a month or so. Maybe 2 months. I don't think Luke was extremely clear in the video. But either way, good marketing move for Prodigy. I like it. I like it a lot. Doxson says the S stands for stable, the P for putter. I always know that their first letter is, driver, putter, mid-range, fairway. Is that what it is? That the other one? I didn't realize that the S was for stability. So, Doc says he had to ask AI. See, AI is good for things. Answers a lot of good questions. It might have hallucinated, but hey, it's an answer, right? A lot of people say they're 100% in support of this idea. Be a good boy and get in the chains. I love it. There's a lot of really great things you can do and you can say. And it'll be just fun to, I guarantee they're going to have some fun on the broadcasts with that. Luke, who tends to play really well the first few weeks of the year, he used to be that guy you'd see at Vegas, Memorial, Waco, and then you'd kind of catch up with him later in the season as he tended to tail off. We don't have any of those events anymore, so he's really got to kind of get on the train and get to at Supreme Flight, at Queen City, and I forget the other one. Does anyone not a pro actually throw Prodigy? Yeah, a lot of people. If they wouldn't be in business otherwise. I think a lot of people just love the plastic. Like they find whatever plastic they like and then they get their discs in that versus stability, it feels like. Maybe again, this is just gut instinct. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Prodigy has a lot of different plastic types, right? They have got like their 400, their 500, their 700 or whatever, and each one is a different blend. And I think people just like the feel of some of those plastics, so good for them. Pretty cool if you ask me. And some other news, that's not good, not bad, I guess. Maybe more bad than good, but that's relative. UDisc Live, the old spot where we keep all the stats for the Disc Golf Pro Tour, is gone. If you now go to udisclive.com it just brings you to the UDisc site. And you might say, well, yeah, duh. Well, no, it used to bring you to the old live scoring site for the DGPT, where you could look up, the first few years of the Disc Golf Pro Tour's scores and statistics. And while the scores are still kept on PDGA's website, because that was all synced, the statistics are not. So unlike what we have now with Pro Tour and PDGA, where we can see putting statistics, driving statistics, the old stuff is on somewhere on a UDisc server, maybe zipped away into a little file on Matt and Josh's, bookshelf somewhere. I'm sure they didn't delete it. I guarantee you they didn't delete it. Nobody ever deletes data like that anymore, but it's not accessible for us anymore. I would go and look at that a couple times a year. Like, oh yeah, this event, where was this event, and who was killing it in C1 for whatever reason, or I had to go back for some skip-based stuff, or whatever. But it's gone, so we can't find it anymore, and that's a little sad. I don't think like that we're gonna see. It's not gone, but it's just inaccessible right now. And maybe they're going to work on something with the Pro Tour to try to find a way to import, or move that data. I know that there's been a little bit of contention in the past as far as whose data it is and who owns it, who has the rights to it, yada, yada, yada. All that stuff. But ultimately, UDisc probably just finally decided that they were they were done hosting that. They were done keeping that out in the world, maintaining it, whatever it takes to kind of just keep that going. Maybe they want to do something different with the UDisc Live domain, which would make a lot of sense. It's a great domain and probably still sees a lot of hits. So I think we're going to see, I would not be shocked if UDisc Live becomes something else in the next year. Some other feature, some, live league scoring or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, it's a little sad. A little sad to see that go. I'm not going to lie. It's a little bit of history. Again, one of my favorite memories is the very first tour event, being at Maple Hill, sitting next to Josh as, we're having live broadcast glitches and trying to fight the signal at Maple Hill as we always do, and watching him as his servers burnt to the ground. Just all the use they got, and having him just like spin up server after server after server. And being an IT guy myself, I always smile and kind of chuckle at that. And it's a cool thing. It's a cool memory. But UDisc Live, shout out to you. Congratulations. We don't have too much left in the hopper here. I'm just seeing if there's anything else that is out there. If there's anything anyone wants to chat about. I'm not sure if there's anything that's out there. I'm just kind of browsing all of the things. Real quick, talk a little bit about Skip Ace. It's 9 o'clock here in Central Time Zone. I put out a newsletter on Substack with a whole bunch of different updates that we've done to the site. Let me just pull that up. That's just skipace.substack.com. And it's the 2026 Skip Ace season is approaching. Things that we've updated. I did do a site design update, of which I had one last year too. But this is more of a couple tweaks just to make it a little more colorful. I've added mock drafts, which is awesome. So you can go in at any time, once an hour. I don't say more than that, but on the hour, you can jump into a mock draft. And just go through the draft process just to test it, to see how it works. If there is, by default, I think I've got 8 people set up for that draft, so you can draft with 8 other people who happen to join in. Or if not enough people join in, it just will fill it with different bots. And they'll make drafts based on kind of average draft position, so things kind of don't, you're not going to see some random, 10, 15 rated player get drafted second. It's going to look at how the other drafts have gone and look at the draft position. So if it's in, the 8th place, it's going to look for the 8th most drafted person. So you can kind of walk through, get a general idea of how drafting is going to go. But so the way it works is it goes off every hour. And if it happens to fill up, great. It'll start right when it's filled up, and it'll open up another draft room. And we'll go from there. And so still every hour on the hour. Mock drafts, they're kind of new. It's a lot of fun. Maybe we'll do a draft here in a couple weeks because we can do that. Everything's all set up on SkipAce. Plus, the Supreme Flight Open has a majority of its players registered and synced up into SkipAce. I'm imagining that most of the first 2 or 3 events, but I definitely saw Supreme Flight Open had its roster out there. And let's see if I can bring it up in a little bit here and show it on the thing. New league types for SkipAce. The league type is a player pick'em league. Something I experimented with a little bit last year. The player pick'em league, how it works. It's unique in that you start a league, and the commissioner gets to decide how many players, MPO players, are in the pick'em. So let's average tournament has 100 players. But let's say you pick 20. What it does is it takes the top 20 players and it pairs them up head-to-head randomly. So your 20th player could face your 5th player, and the people in your league just have to pick the winners. Do you think Isaac is going to beat Kelvin? And to add a little incentive for scoring, everyone's going to pick, if you've got Gannon, we'll say, versus Silas, almost everyone's picking Gannon, right? Yes and yes. to be blunt, yes. But you can pick Silas and get bonus points. So what it does is it looks at the difference between the players, their ranking, not their rating, their ranking, so like 1st versus 20th. And there's a little formula that figures out who's worth more points. So if you do pick Silas, let's say you get 14 points, and if you pick Gannon, you get the standard 10 point for picking a favorite. It helps incentivize people picking underdogs. So it's not just, everyone's picking the same, lopsided win. Maybe you need to catch up later in the season, and so you're going to start making more of those risky calls. Different scoring I'd say oldish, new scoring format is we are bringing back the sliding scale that we had for many years. People requested it. Last year I introduced, or 2 years ago, I introduced category scoring, so you can score based on birdies, bogeys, streaks. But I removed the old, hey, top person gets 500 points, and then it scrolls down from there down to like negative 500. It's a little different, but it's still a sliding scale. So the nice thing about this is that it fits really well with the different field sizes. MPO 100 players, FPO 25, or whatever those numbers are. Those scales will slide much more appropriately. And there's a preseason league out there if you want to jump in and join. You don't get anything, but it's fun just to get everybody back in the habit. There's a league out there for preseason. We've already done our first event, and this upcoming weekend is going to be the La Mirada event. I just picked a bunch of 5 or 6 random events, one each week, and I set some salary cap so you can go in and just play. Let's get this party started, right? Let's get this party started quickly, right? Yeah. CNC Music Factory. It wouldn't be a podcast if I didn't mention something from some 90s band. But that's some of the SkipAce updates. There's a few other little ones that are out there. I do have a new win probability chart. Let me see here. Which one is this? This is for... this is for the... I can probably show this here. I'm going to zoom out my screen. If you're listening, sorry, this is going to be a visual deal. numbers. There it is. So here, this is a win probability chart for the upcoming event. I forget what event this. Oh yeah, this is the La Mirada event. I should probably put the name of the event at the top of it. But right now, it's picking Aaron Gossage as a 38% chance for him to pull off the victory. Parker Welk has a 27% chance. Drew Gibson, 14.75. Aviel Gomez with a 7.38% chance. Emmanuel Torres, 4.21. Lewis Bitney, 2.72. And so on and so forth. It looks at the pre-event one it's heavily based on your rating. But let me see if I can find a different one here. Nope, I don't have another one right now. All right, that's fine. But it's heavily based on your rating, and for the Pro Tour, it's not always going to pick Gannon, or it will always pick Gannon because he's the best player. But if there are things such as course notes or course information from the PDGA site, it will look at your course history for the courses. For instance, here you can see this is last week's event. And this honestly it's not fully updated. Oops, I was zooming. That's why you can see here. I think this is to start out. Eli Swanson had a 0.22. It was figured about 0.22 chance for him to win. But yeah, if we look over at FPO and click over on FPO, this is the cap merch information. This one is a little bit goofy just because I started it in the middle of the event. So hopefully this upcoming event with the La Mirada, we will see a much more interesting graph as how players go. UDisc had this. Honestly, I'm just ripping off UDisc, their win probability chart. Not going to lie. It's still kind of a beta feature, but you can find it up under the research area of Skip Ace. We don't charge any extra for it. You can just check it out. A couple other things. Skip Ace, just some basic behind the scenes stuff. I've got this is a teaser to a teaser. I'm starting a new disc golf project. And it's something I've always wanted to do. I can't say what it is yet, because it's just too early, because it might never happen, and I don't want to be bothered by people yelling and screaming about whether or not it's actually going to happen. But I'm playing around with some things. And so I'm starting a new disc golf project. I will be interested to see how this works. So keep your ears open. If this actually ends up panning out in the future, I will let Smashies will be the first ones to know. But it could be a total flop and a failure, but I've always wanted to do this. And now I'm going to. So that's a teaser. That's what we call a teaser in the business. But go out, get your picks in. Let me see if I can, if I look at my picks right now for the upcoming La Mirada Open Pro Weekend, I've got Gossage, Cam Rico, Josh Anthon, Andrew Miranda, Owen Scoggins, and Violet Main. And again, this is salary capped, so you can't pick all the top players. I think I only allow 6,000 points for this particular week. I looked at kind of the roster, and I just made a rough gut guess. So pretty cool. Pretty cool. Updated some of the settings in here. Oh, I didn't even tell anybody yet. This hasn't even been announced yet, but I'll announce it here. One of the big features that a lot of people have been looking for on Skip Ace is roster locking. So if you're in a draft league and your team has, you got 8 people on your team, 6 MPO, 2 FPO, or whatever that number is. The roster is always locked at like 8 a.m., whatever the event time was. That bothered people because MPO doesn't start until 10 a.m., maybe 11 a.m.-ish, depending on the size of the fields. And so you'd get people who would come and be like, last minute, I wanted to change out Barsby with Matt Oram. ugh, now I can't because they're locked at 8 a.m. This year, we'll be looking at the tee times, and we're going to lock your commissioner has the option. They can lock it at 8 a.m., just like it always has been, or they can choose tee times, which means individual players will lock. So if Greg Barsby is teeing off at noon and you show up at 1 o'clock, Barsby's locked and you cannot change him. But let's say you have 3 other guys who maybe you do want to change. You will be able to move those up until, I think about 5 minutes before their tee time. I'll have to take a look what that number is. I think I set it to 5. I couldn't remember if it was 5 or 10. But those are that is the next update I did. It's been a huge request for a few years that people didn't love the rosters locking at 8 a.m. because a lot of leagues are strictly MPO. And whatever, you want to do what you want to do. I like having FPO in my league, and so they felt that they were being, I don't say unfairly punished, but they didn't have the option of locking positions later in the afternoon. And now you will. Your commissioner can go in there and take a look and set that for you at any given time. So that is a brand new announcement that I haven't announced anywhere. It'll probably be in the next newsletter I put out, but I just finished that yesterday, so I haven't even really had a chance to test it. I did some real quick testing on my dev site. It seemed to look like it was going to lock, but I'm going to have to figure that out. Make sure it works. Tim says, can I mock people for who they drafted? Of course. We do it all the time. Oh, there's a chat room. There's a chat room in the draft league now. There's a little tab you can hit chat, and you can just keep kind of like a chat log. So if you do want to mock somebody live in your draft, you can definitely do that. Now, I will say, I can see all those messages. They're all stored in a database somewhere. So if I will at some point, we'll probably go through and look at some of the funniest comments and maybe make a funny post with them. But yeah, do your darndest, people. Go ahead and mock people for who they draft. So, can we mock people for repping 6-7? You can mock anybody whose scorecard has a 6 and a 7 on it. Might be mine. Artie says we need a cardboard cutout of Terry. Who's to say I don't have one? Huh? Why are you jumping to conclusions? Maybe I just don't want to share it with the world. Saying. I don't. So. All right, everybody. It's 9:15. I think we've gone through all the news that's fit to news. We'll be back next week and probably have Scott Stokely on the show to talk about what he's been up to or what he's going to be doing. Assuming everything works out, he reached out to us and said, hey, guys, he actually calls us the 2 most handsome men. So I do appreciate that. He reached out and just kind of had a general, what's going on. And I'd have some news I'd love to kind of just talk about. So as you know us, we're good. And without Terry here, it'd be a good time to catch up with Scott, him and I. So for everyone in Asia at the Siam Open, good luck. Hope you play well the second and third round. Have a lot of fun. Everyone at the Disc Expo, enjoy the exclusive drops. Don't just put them right out on all the disc sites. Don't just whatnot them that night. I hope if you're there that you're truly relishing in them. If you're going to do anything, at least tease them for a little while. Be like, hey, look what I got. Tease the people who can't make it, like me. Go have fun. Say hi to all the pros. Tell them I say hi and that they need to be on Smashbox soon. Other than that, episode 591. I'm your host, John Van Derzen. I will see you next week when once again you step inside the Smashbox. Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the SmashBoxxTV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV.